start recording for you. So today is November 15th, 2022, 5,800 and what, 73. Today, Reuven is going to present us a fascinating topic. And here's Reuven.
Taking this, my notes are from a lecture by Rabbi Aryeh Leibowitz from YU Online, from Yeshiva University. It was delivered in about 12 years ago. So this is the issue of eating fish and meat together. It's a tradition.
I mean, ice
held
cream.
by
Hope
most
it's no
Orthodox.
violation.
What's that?
I said, I'm eating ice cream and listening same time. So I hope it's not a violation
Yeah.
of the rule.
Well, put the tuna fish over there on the other side while you're. Anyway, there's actually an issue about milk and fish, which I'll get into at the end.
Okay.
Anyway, so the Rambam, it's clear in the Torah, in the Devarim, it says you have to keep a close watch on your health. And Rambam actually says that anybody who does unhealthy things and says he has the right to do what he wants is deserving of lashes. I don't know if that applies to smoking, but
I was just thinking of that. Yeah.
Anyway, the Gemara in Chulin 9a states explicitly you have to treat dangerous activities with greater stringency than you would treat halakhically prohibited activities. And one of the dangerous activities that Chazal cite is the prohibition of eating meat and fish together. This comes from Gemara Pesachim 76b. It says, fish that's cooked with meat may not be eaten because it's likely to lead to a davar acher. Rashi says davar acher, the other thing, is a reference to tzarat. It's the way when there's something unpleasant, just like we don't say cancer, we say yena machla, the other thing.
But he's saying if it's a cooked with meat, or what if it's separate with meat?
Yeah, so I'll go into a little more detail. The Shulchan Aruch, Yoredeya, says you have to be careful not to eat fish and meat together because it may cause tzarat. So whether it's cooked or not, you can't eat them together. So the first question is, does this prohibition still apply nowadays? So Shulchan Aruch, it's written from Rabbi Kara, one may not drink liquids that have been exposed because snakes may have had access to the drinks and may have deposited their venom in the drinks. Shulchan Aruch concludes, nowadays, when snakes don't typically have access to our homes, it is permitted to drink liquids that have been left out.
Really?
But interestingly, the Shulchan Aruch does not make such an allowance for consumption of fish and meat together on the grounds that current medicine doesn't see any health problem. So the opinion of the majority of poskim is that the prohibition still holds. Yad Ephraim, that's Ephraim Zalman Margoliot, he lived around 1790 to 1820. He wrote a commentary on Shulchan Aruch. And in Orach Chaim, it's which means way of life. It's a reference to Tehillim 16 and not Pasuk 11. It's the first of four sections of Shulchan Aruch dealing with prayer, tefillin, tzitzit, Shabbos, and holidays. So Yad Ephraim cites poskim who state the prohibition remains intact today. One of the issues, because it doesn't follow the rule about snakes and venom in your drinks, is that as soon as the concern doesn't exist, the prohibition is lifted. But the prohibition of meat and fish is a concern that the combination can have negative health effects that are not readily apparent. And even if modern medicine doesn't recognize these health concerns, we can't be sure the concerns are outdated.
Well, can I ask a question? Let me understand.
Yeah.
You said modern medicine does not, as a doctor, Reuven, you would say modern medicine doesn't have a problem with eating fish and meat together today?
No, modern medicine would say knows of no problem eating meat and fish together.
But if modern medicine doesn't see it as a problem, how did rabbis thousands of years ago saw that as a problem?
Well, the rabbis had certain ideas, which many of them we don't hold by today, such as the idea of, snakes putting venom in your drink. Wouldn't make sense even from a biological point of view, because as far as we know, snakes only put venom into somebody if you bite. even to get venom out of snakes, you have to grab them by the neck and you have to massage the venom glands and to get some drops of venom out, which is sometimes used for various things.
Oh.
So, but the rabbis had certain opinions, and they're given a lot of respect. Very often it's felt that they had special spiritual insight into things, about things we would not know about otherwise. A good example is it's believed that one of the reasons Jews during the era of the Black Plague didn't suffer as much attacks as Black Plague as non-Jews. Well, two things. First, they had to wash their hands all the time. But another one is that in most villages, the Gentiles would just throw their garbage in the middle of the street and let the rain wash it down. So it created a bad smell. Jews can't pray around a bad smell. So they were a little cleaner. They used to keep the garbage separate. And because of this, so many Jewish communities were subjected to pogroms. Also because there was a belief that Jews had caused the plague by poisoning wells and such. But just for instance, washing hands, as a doctor, the fact you have to wash your hands before you eat and you're washing them multiple times a day makes it less likely that you're going to spread an infection to your patients, even though they didn't learn about germs causing disease until Louis Pasteur in the late 1800s.
But
so there's things like that which the Chachamim felt that certain things were dangerous, and unless there was a reason to override their concern, the standard Orthodox point of view is to acknowledge and follow their opinion, even if it doesn't make sense from a modern point of view.
But let me ask you the opposite questions. You said modern medicine doesn't prove it today that it's an issue, and rabbis 2,000 years ago, let's say 3,000 years, said it was an issue. So can I make two opinions? One is, if rabbis today don't have a problem, or if doctors today don't have a problem, that might mean the rabbis didn't know what they're talking about. But another way to look at it, where maybe at those days it was dangerous for some reason, not knowing. We didn't live 3,000 years ago.
It's another point of view, which we'll get into, that one explanation is that nature has changed, that things have changed, and that things that might have been dangerous once might not be dangerous now.
I would say, if I would say 40 years ago, long live capitalism, I will be in Siberian prison. But today I can say long live capital all I want in the middle of New York City, and everything is fine. So
so you can say that's one nature has changed. But anyway, let me get on because there's a lot of stuff here, and it'll take a little while to get through. All right, so the prohibition of meat and fish is something that can't be proven to be not dangerous. You could say clearly snakes don't get in houses. Nobody's ever seen a snake get in the house. So it's something very verifiable, and you can say it just doesn't happen. Whereas the issue of whether meat and fish is dangerous, you can't prove it isn't dangerous. It's just a concept. The Magen Abraham is Abraham Abele Gambiner, lived in Poland from 1665, 1671. And it's he wrote Magen Abraham as a commentary on Orach Chaim, a section of the Shulchan Aruch. He writes that there are many natural phenomena mentioned in the Gemara that simply no longer apply today. And he didn't think it was an issue. And also, he points out that Rambam admits this concern from the Mishnah Torah. It doesn't mention meat and fish together. On the other hand, Chatam Sofer is Moses Sofer, who were from 1785 to 1835. He wrote commentaries on Rashi. He gave two explanations for the fact that Rambam didn't mention meat and fish together. First, he says, it's possible Rambam knew Gemara was only concerned with specific fish that was mentioned in Pesachim and Gemara, but all other fish are no danger, mixed with meat. Alternatively, the Rambam knew that nature has changed, and though there was a legitimate health threat once posed by fish and meat together, there's no such threat today. It's interesting, though, that Chatam Sofer doesn't recommend we rely on the Rambam's opinion. And again, he doesn't state his opinion. It's just by inference that he didn't think it was important.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different approaches. Now, the stringent approach, the most stringent is by the Torah. It's Rabbi Yaakov ben Asher. His compilation of halachic law is around 1300. Mentioned that his father, the Rosh, would wash his hands and eat bread that was soaked in wine between eating fish and meat. The idea was there was no fish residue remaining on the hands. The purpose of eating the soaked bread is to clear your mouth of the taste of fish, sort of like rinsing the palate. Although washing the mouth between meat and milk should be done by solid and liquid food separately. That's something else. Shulchan Aruch cites this as normative practice. The Vilna Gaon says if one eats in a lighted air and you can see there's no residue of on your hands from the fish, you can forego the washing in your hands. Also, if you eat with a fork that never touches the food, there's no need to wash between fish and meat. There's a more lenient opinion from Darkei Moshe. It's a commentary of the book Arbe Turim, written by the Polish Ashkenazi Rabbi Moses Isserles. And he says, in the name of the Mordechai, the 13th century rabbi, Mordechai Hillel HaKohen, is one of the sources of the Shulchan Aruch. It said there's probably no danger eating fish and meat that weren't cooked together. In practice, we refrain from eating fish and meat even when they are not cooked together. We don't need to wash our hands. And the Ramah, was Rabbi Moshe Isserles, cites this ruling and says the common custom is to eat solid food and drink some liquid between fish and meat. So some people say you really need to wash your hands and rinse your mouth and eat something special, and the Ramah was not so strict on that. Now, the specific laws relating to fish and meat together. The Gemara in Pesachim cites a dispute regarding the kosher and non-kosher food cooked simultaneously in the same oven. It's an issue of reicha, or aroma, that may be imparted from one food to another. So the Shulchan Aruch rules that initially one should avoid the possibility of aroma being imparted from non-kosher food to kosher food. But b'diavad, if kosher food has absorbed aroma of non-kosher food, we assume the aroma is insignificant, reicha lav milsa, and the food may be eaten. So the issue of reicha is not clear, whether we can, around cooking meat and fish together in an oven. The Ramah, or Moshe Isserles, says, you should be careful not to eat roast meat and fish together in the same oven. But if it already occurred, you can eat the fish. So there are other opinions that support that. The Shach, Rabbi Shabtai Cohen, cites the opinion of the Mahashal that you can even cook meat and fish lechatchila simultaneously in the same oven. So that's a more lenient opinion. Mm-hmm. And there's an opinion of the Be'er Sheva. I couldn't find the source. Who is the Be'er Sheva? But obviously it came from Be'er Sheva. The Shach being Shabtai Cohen, he cites the opinion of the Be'er Sheva, although we would generally permit reicha, that there's an odor coming back and forth between the foods. We are more strict with danger than when forbidden foods. So we would not even allow one to eat meat that's already been cooked with fish. The idea is that if something's actually dangerous to your health, it's even more strict than if it's unkosher. And many leading poskim concur with this stringent approach. As far as using the same utensils for fish and meat cooking, the Torah makes us use separate for milk and meat because we assume the taste of the food becomes absorbed in the utensil. It may impart taste into future food. Regarding fish and meat, however, the poskim are not convinced we have to concern ourselves with the taste. There are those who are stringent and think it's still a danger, we shouldn't do it. And there's even some, the Pitzchei Tshuva, which was Tzvi Hirsch Eisenstadt, between 1830 and 1836, he wrote a commentary on Shulchan Aruch, cites that the utensil has to be kosher if you used it for fish and then meat. That's a really extreme opinion. Now, there's another opinion regarding bittul b'shishim. It's well known if you have 1 part non-kosher and 60 parts kosher, you can It becomes nullified, you don't count it. So there's an issue whether the same thing would be regarding fish and meat. The Taz is Rabbi David Halevi. He's from 1586, 1667 from Ukraine. And he wrote a work Torah Zahav, which was a commentary on Shulchan Aruch. And he's named after the initials, Torah Zahav, Taz. He writes, dangerous foods can't become nullified in 60 times their volume. Now, that certainly would apply to cyanide, because even like a few parts per million will kill you. So 1 in 60 is definitely dangerous. So he doesn't allow. Chazal teaches that Chamira Sakanta Mesura. That's we have to treat dangerous foods more caution than we treat non-kosher. Now, so the Taz is a more strict view. The Shach argues that this idea that it's dangerous is more strict than unkosher. It's only limited to a case of doubt. It wouldn't extend the laws of bittul. So according to the Khatam Sofer, fish and meat have lost their status as a dangerous food. We now have the status of forbidden, and may now have the status of forbidden food. So in other words, it's not really dangerous. The Shach says it's just forbidden, as if it was unkosher, because the rabbi said we shouldn't mix them. So we don't really have to consider it dangerous. And 1 part in 60 would nullify it. The most poskim agree with that view. So if you dropped a little fish by accident in a pot of meat stew, it's okay. Now, an interesting problem comes up with Worcestershire sauce, which is made with fish. So many people like eating this with their meat, and some brands actually have only 1 part in 60 of fish. So the Orthodox Union Kashrut Division has made a policy to label any sauce with Worcestershire sauce. If it has more than 1.67% fish, they put a label, it shouldn't be eaten with meat. They take the opinion of the Shach that foods prohibited on account of danger may be nullified. As far as dry mixtures of fish and meat, it's also considered by the Khatam Sofer. They are not dangerous, but they're forbidden, and you can nullify 1 part in 60. So there's an interesting point of view on fish and milk. The Beit Yosef. Beit Yosef is written by Yosef Karo. It's a detailed commentary on the Arbatorium by Yaakov ben Usher. And he later, basically the Arbatorium was later condensed, partly used for the Shulchan Aruch. He strongly questions whether there's a danger of eating fish and milk together. He concludes the Beit Yosef has confused milk with meat, and there's no room for concern regarding fish and milk together. In other words, he was thinking of fish as meat. And the overwhelming majority of poskim agree with his point of view that there's no problem eating milk and fish. Mm-hmm. The Shach and the Taz write explicitly the Beit Yosef was mistaken about milk and fish. And the great Sephardic pasuk, Rabbi Yosef Azulai, the Chidah, agrees it's a misprint. He thinks it's a misprint. And the Pitkei Teshuvah writes, even if there once was a danger involving fish and milk, now everybody does this with no ill effects, we can assume it is not dangerous. There is an alternative opinion that although from Kaf HaChaim is Yaakov Chaim Sofer, he lived in Jerusalem from 1900 to 1940 roughly. And he wrote that although Ashkenazic poskim find no health concerns with eating fish and milk together, different areas have different atmospheres which may lead to different health concerns.
Reuven said Ashkenazim find he just from his observation, right?
That's his observation, yeah. And the Rabbeinu Bachya in Parshat Mishpatim wrote that doctors of his time felt that mixing fish and milk was dangerous. As such, he suggests staying away from dangerous activity is more important than staying away from forbidden activity, and he advised not eating fish and milk together.
Well, you just mentioned if the doctors of his time said it's dangerous, why should we not believe them?
Well, Kaf HaChaim, that was the early 1900s.
Okay, so in 1900s it was dangerous. The doctor said, not rabbis. The doctor said it was dangerous.
No,
So
no,
I
I'm
would
sorry.
say
I'm sorry. That's not. It's Rabbeinu Bachya. Rabbeinu Bachya said doctors in his time. Rabbeinu Bachya was 1255 to 1340.
okay. So
So
if he's referring to the doctor saying dangerous, why should not believe him? Do I need to say that he's lying? If he's saying that it was dangerous from his doctors, he heard it. I mean, I would say, well, I believe.
well, you're talking about somebody,
dangerous?
but you're talking about doctors in roughly around the year 1300 saying it's dangerous.
Oh, yeah, so it was. But
So
I'm not saying it's dangerous now. Now it may not be dangerous, but it was dangerous then. Why it was dangerous then? I have no idea. But I cannot say it never was dangerous. At least here's the fact that just brought out that the doctors
right.
in the 1200s felt it was dangerous. I mean, doctors in 1300s were not stupid.
Well, let's put it this way: they're not. Doctors at that time, they didn't have a really good scientific basis for medicine. You got to remember that until the 1500s, the standard treatment for battlefield wounds was to pour boiling oil in them. Until a doctor in France at a battlefield ran out of boiling oil and he had to use rose water and egg white to wrap the wounds. And he was sure his patients were all going to die. And to his shock, they did better. Can't remember his name offhand, but the French doctor, a battlefield doctor.
I know.
So there's a lot of crazy. There were a lot of crazy ideas back then. You know,
I know. But
scientific.
if doctors in 13th century would make opinions about brain surgery or flying to Mars, I would say maybe I don't believe that opinion. But simple to say, the doctors still say, listen, fish and meat eating together is dangerous. I mean, doesn't require very scientific
fish
things.
And milk.
Fish
and milk.
Fish and milk.
Rabbeinu Bachya from the 1300s saying that his doctors of his time felt they were mixing together was dangerous. Again, yeah. Look, you can't. It's like the idea in the Gemara that fish and meat is together dangerous. You can't say it's not, and you can't prove it is or not. I mean, you want to do a study of 10,000 patients and give half of them milk and fish together, and the other half don't give them together, and see how the outcomes are.
But that's what I'm trying to understand, Robin. So I'm saying if I listen to the rabbis, I mean, I cannot make even if I'm completely irreligious and whatever, I can't say that the majority of rabbis were just simply completely ignoramuses. This is very highly respected, smart people. And this guy,
that's why
3,000 years ago told me it was dangerous to eat at that time meat and fish. Yeah. What would me now, 3,000 years later, would say they don't know what they're talking about? To me, it would be very disrespectful.
Right. That's why we don't just dismiss it, and that's why it's still a strong custom to maintain. Many people feel that even if it is not from a modern medical point of view dangerous, there may be other subtle issues that we know about and the rabbis knew about. It just shows that there's a respect for every detail of halacha, and unless the rabbis overrule it, we hold to it. And look, separating, you can't say it's harmful to separate them. So, as far as fish and milk, there are many Sephardic Jews and some Hasidic Jews are careful not to eat fish and milk together. But most of those are stringent in this area. Do acknowledge it probably only exists with real milk, but not mixing dairy ingredients like butter with fish. So that is pretty much a good summary of the whole topic. It's, again, more secular people would say they think the whole idea is silly and it's just a superstition or some goofy custom from ancient times. But again, it just shows that we have a lot of respect for the sages, and we're hesitant to change anything they instituted unless we have a strong, good, solid reason
like
to override it.
Like you said, Robin, the secular people will say it's crazy. I mean, people say whatever they want. I mean, we live in a democratic world, and people can say that I have 5 horns behind my back and just don't show it, and they have a right to say that. But I would say, give you an example. I have a 40 years experience with pumps. I don't know much about meat and fish, but I know 40 years experience with pumps. I'm one of the best world experts in pumping machinery, very narrow field. And I tell you today that if vibrations exceed a certain level, most likely within a short time, the pump would fail. 1,000 years from now, they come up with technology that at the same vibration, pump will not fail, because materials of the pumps at that time will be such that it's no longer susceptible to those vibrations. So somebody
in nature will have changed.
Yeah, so 1,000 years ago, somebody would say, Lev Nelik, 1,000 years ago, Dr. Nelik, a pump expert, I was saying that vibration causes pump to fail. He is smoking dope. The pumps don't fail from vibration. Everyone knows that. It would be very disrespectful for them to look at me, who is a renowned expert in the pumping machinery today, and I know for the fact that pumps fail from vibrations. And if it changes later on, fine. Don't worry about vibrations. But today, it's dangerous. So somebody 1,000 years from now might simply still be concerned about vibrations, saying, well, in Lev's time, it was dangerous. No, it's not. But I just want to maintain tradition. Just want to do it. That's a choice. But to say that what Lev Nelik said, it just doesn't make any sense when you were not here. Somebody 1,000 years from now who didn't live in my time and didn't know that I actually knew firsthand that vibrations causing pump to fail would claim that I just simply don't know what I'm talking about, will be just, I think it would be strange. That's analogy I'm trying to say between us now, to say, it may be perfectly fine that eating meat and fish today has no problems, and you can study biology and everything else and say that's fine. But we don't know that 3,000 years ago, it wasn't the case. And the rabbis, and the knowledgeable people who we have to have respect, this is not a second grade dropouts. They're just simply sitting around and talking about something. This is very respectable people that knew a lot more than I do. And for me to say that these guys just didn't know, if they're not right today, I can agree with that. Maybe today it's not a bad goal. But I cannot say 3,000 years wasn't a problem. I wasn't there. So I have to have some respect for what happened at some time point in history that I wasn't part of. Just respectful about it. I don't have to agree with today it's not applicable, but I cannot say that it wasn't applicable yet. I don't know. But if they tell me if 100 people, a very knowledgeable people who spend their lifetime studying medicine and astronomy and everything else, if they say, I see several guys eating meat and fish, and their stomach's not feeling good because they not the right aspirin, and maybe they live by the water that has some bacteria, who knows what reasons. And if people don't feel good, and I say, don't eat meat and fish, guys, because it's not good for you. Some people may die, some people have diarrhea, whatever. I would say, taking your lecture today, I can find, as much as I will try to be cynic about it, the reason why I would just dismiss it. I don't buy it. Don't buy it. 1,000 years from now, somebody wouldn't buy that my opinion in vibration and pumps hold any water. And I would say, okay, well, you don't believe me. Don't believe me. What do you think I'm doing all day long? Watching the pumps vibrating. Mr. 1,000 years later person.
Well, the other problem is if you start dismissing, something like that, then it could easily lead to dismissing a lot of other things. You could say, well, there was a reason we didn't eat pig in those days. We don't have to follow that rule anymore because pig is safe.
And today we have conditioning and refrigerations, and it wasn't applicable, but it was not good then.
Well, that's more detailed because it's right in the Chumash that we can't.
I just always have, you just mentioned it, because I have trouble when somebody says, when the expression, I don't buy it. I always have trouble with it. I hear from many people. I hear from members of my own family, my own kids, that I don't buy. One time my son came to the shul, and I was sitting and studying with Olga, and he comes to the shul once in a blue moon. He came and he knows probably like 1/100% that anybody else in the shul knows. He's just not a religious guy. And I remember he was sitting next to me, and I enjoyed his company. I had a great time. And some discussion, something, and he just said, I don't buy it. And I get so embarrassed. This is my son, came to the synagogue, come to the lecture with the people studying for years. He only comes once a year for 15 minutes, and he hears something. He says, it's like, I'll come to your lecture, Ruben, that you're a doctor, and you'll say something that, the liver is on this side from the heart and appendix over here. And I would say, I don't buy it. What are you
What
going
was
to
it that he? What was it that he dismissed?
I don't remember even what the topic was, but I tell you that I got red as a beet. And I got so embarrassed as ever. My son came in and showed himself, opened his mouth, and showed himself as ignoramus.
Well,
Disrespectful.
I think it's more than that. I think it's more than that. He's feeling uncomfortable with the idea of being from and keeping his halachas, and he just wants out of hand to say that he's not interested. And it's his way of announcing that he's not interested.
But if you're coming once in a blue moon and sitting with people, at least you should keep your mouth shut and thinking what this guy's talking about. And maybe if you learn something, they can say, "Well, I don't understand it." But
yeah, but again, you have to be somebody open to listening to different ideas, and he just at that point in his life he's not open, and he maybe feels a little threatened, and he's just saying this is not. It's his way of saying this is not for me, and I'm not interested.
Yeah. It's like I will tell.
But it's true. A lot of people, will they really know nothing about the Chumash, and suddenly they're experts. It's all nonsense.
Einstein said E equals MC squared. I don't buy it. I don't buy it.
Well,
He's wrong.
The Nazis actually wrote. The Nazis didn't like Hitler didn't like physics. He said it was Jewish science, and they actually got together 100 German scientists to write a book about why the theory of relativity was wrong. And Einstein's reaction was, "Why do they need 100? If it's wrong, they only need one."
And then also in Poland, 300 years ago, our ancestors didn't have electricity. I didn't buy it. I think they did. I didn't buy it. They had electricity and locomotives and computers 300 years ago in 1600s. They had it. Go tell me. Yeah. I didn't buy it. This is all the Baumeister. I mean, people can such a outrageously. If you and another 5 doctors are debating what should you do when somebody has appendicitis, I can see there are 5 qualified doctors saying maybe we should use this and this and this and debate. Go to a conference, discuss it. But if I will be the 6th guy coming to a conference with 5 doctors and stalling and never knowing exactly in which position of the body there's that particular organ, and for me to see with you, I don't buy it, guys. I don't.
Well, think of it. Think of it from another point of view. Well, no, think of it from another point of view, which is that people who are secular and they don't accept the basic premises of religion, the idea there is a God who makes demands on us. It was revealed through the Torah. Let's say you've just decided there's no such thing as God and it's all fabrication. So right from the beginning, their attitude is that none of it is of any importance and none of it makes sense, and there's nothing there of any interest that anybody needs to know about. Yeah, it's an ignorant opinion, because you have to understand that tradition is something that has solved problems that mankind and the community has needed answers to. Mm-hmm. It's like somebody once said, old wives' tales very often are the solution to problems that we've forgotten. We've already forgotten what the problems are because they've been solved. It takes a lot of humility to admit maybe you don't know everything, but a lot of kids in their schooling have been brainwashed to thinking that religion is nonsense or it's just like a hobby. It's not important. And only silly, superstitious people believe in it. It's a whole worldview. It's a whole it's all based on the socialist idea. And that's...
I wonder, although...
It's hard to cut into that negativity, because...
But I wonder... I would say, Reuven, what you're saying, I can see when people, secular and religious people, that I respect the secular people having their opinion. If somebody says, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in all rabbinical things, it's all Baba, that's their opinion. I respect their opinion. And
Yeah.
I happen to have opposite opinion, and I hope they respect my opinion, just simply don't agree. But they can't.
They don't. They don't, and they won't.
Well,
You
well,
can give up on that idea.
but even taking that debate apart, I mean, I don't point fingers at someone and say how stupid they are because they don't believe in God. I say, listen, people have their opinions, their views, whatever they're based on science, whatever, it's fine. But that's not even my issue here. In your presentation triggers another for me. Even not talking debates about religion, just the fact that somebody said that for during the King Solomon days, not even from a religious standpoint, but just from historical standpoint, there was a temple, and the stones were very nicely cut, and the iron wasn't used to building. And of course, Talmud decides that the stone were cut with a special little worm. I think it's the name of it,
Yeah.
shamir. I think it was called.
Shamir worm, yeah.
And that worm actually had to be contained in a lead container because, I mean, you can say it's almost like a radioactive worm. He would follow the line and it would make
Is that what they say? The worm was contained in a lead container?
Right, because if people say like in a funny way, oh, this is King Solomon had the radioactive uranium something, and it would just like laser. I mean, all this technology, people would just kind of joke about it. So my point here, not even from religious standpoint, but if I say that certain mechanism existed 3,000 years ago, and there was a worm that cut the stone that perfectly, how would I today can say this is a bunch of Baumeister? The best I can say, listen, that sounds very strange, very interesting. It's mind-boggling. Whether it was true or not, I have no idea. But it's interesting. But for me to
We
say
can
I
say we
don't
have no
buy,
evidence. There's no evidence in our current world that such a thing exists. Yeah.
if there's no
That's all you
evidence
can
that
say.
the worm 3,000 years ago, that means I know for sure it just didn't exist. And don't tell me it wasn't Baumeister. I would be ashamed to look at myself in the mirror to say, how can I make a statement about something that history, some people passing through the century existed? At least I can just sit in wonder, like, what? That's amazing, mind-boggling. It doesn't make sense to me. But to say, to continuously outright negate it is almost meaning I know better. So I'm an educated guy. I have degrees. I went to college. I got a scholarship. I spent a lot of time. I got all A's in physics. And because of that, you cannot tell me that 3,000 years ago there was one that cut the stone. That's how smart I am. And all these people, dozens and hundreds of them, who didn't go to the same school I do, how can they possibly go and argue against my opinion, the most educated and refined opinion of all? Oh, when you look at a person like me, like saying that, you say, Lev, are you just out of your mind? I mean, are you that like judge and utmost authority? If it doesn't fit into your knowledge, that means you just simply don't buy. I mean, it would be.
Yeah.
It was. I cannot say. I cannot. I personally, I always have trouble stating something as not true in the area that I don't know much about. And I find out that most of the areas in life I don't really know much about. So it gives you a little bit of humility. You learn something a little bit before it's just
Well,
outright.
It's the thing is, it's to really be humble sometimes takes more knowledge and to realize that you have limits to your even Isaac Newton said he with writing, inventing calculus and writing a whole series of equations, explaining nature. It's probably the best it was done before Einstein. He said he felt for his whole life he felt like a child standing on the shore playing with pretty pebbles when the whole ocean of knowledge lay before him untouched. But you have to be that smart and that humble to realize the limits of your it's not easy. We only have about 30 seconds, so anyway.
Yes, thank you, Ruben. Thank you so much. Very fascinating, and it hit the nerve in me because I always think about things like that, and history is just amazing. Just so much to learn, and discover. Thank you so much. And next Tuesday at 8 o'clock Israeli time will be the next topic.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right, take care.
Shavuot Tov. Thanks again, Ruben.
Sure,